This is the Abarth 500 and it's the return of the hot hatchback. And these are what it has to beat.
The petrol hot hatchback has had a hard time of it lately. Because of tightening emissions and safety regulations, you can no longer buy a Ford Fiesta ST. Renaultsport Clios and Meganes are no more. Forget the Corsa VXR and Peugeot GTIs. The list of cancelled hatches goes on. Abarth, though, has here what is arguably, and it's an argument I'm happy to make, the world's first electric hot hatchback. We've tested bigger, more expensive drivers' EVs before, like the Audi e-tron GT, fast Teslas and the Porsche Taycan, but while there's no direct rival to this Abarth, until those arrive, there are some affordable, fun EV alternatives. These are the best of them. Let's start then with a Cupra Born, a 5-door hatchback from one of the Volkswagen Group's most sporting brands. It's even rear-wheel drive.
To the Cupra Born, then. I quite like these. I mean, like a lot of EVs, they've got a skateboard architecture, so the battery is very low, which means there is minimal body roll, but also the drive goes to the rear wheels, where it should be, and it's Cupra rather than a Volkswagen, which is a bit more sporty, a bit more dynamic as a brand. And although there are quite a lot of similarities between the Born and the Volkswagen ID3, we always think that the Born is the slightly better car to drive. Now, what I really like about this platform architecture car is that drive goes to the rear wheels, and that means that the front wheels don't have to worry about torque steering. Quite a lot of torque with an electric motor, but because the front wheels are unencumbered by power, the steering can just be the steering. Now, it's not like it's full of soul or life, it's not like a Lotus Elise or something, but it's very smooth, it's very slick, it's very accurate, it's nicely responsive, and you just don't have to worry about when you get back on the power mid-corner, the steering just stays, it just steers, it just does what it should do really nicely. Body control is a tiny bit loose, there's not loads of lean or rolling corners, but actually as you go over dips and crests, it does take a little second bite at things from time to time. It's got some oomph. It drives itself out of a corner really, really nicely, which I like. It's got a nice balance to it. So as I come out over a crest there, actually it did deal with that crest quite nicely. It's a good car. Again, it's not an exciting car. It's not a hot hatchback per se, but it does have a really nice balance. I think a really good blend of ride and handling, which is kind of just about where it should be. I'd like it to be moved on a bit further to be worthy of a brand name that, you know, is supposed to be at the sportier end of things within the Volkswagen Group. It would be cool if it totally lived up to that, but as a way of getting things going, and we are still in the early stages of people making good drivers' cars that are electric. You know, we are, as some manufacturers will tell you, you know, as car enthusiasts, we are the last people to be seriously enthused at this level. Porsche Taycans, really fast Teslas, some hypercars accepted. The EV, the fun EV for the everyman, is still coming through. But this is a good balance, a good blend, a good start. I like it. Wouldn't mind if it was a bit more exciting, but I'll take it for what it is.
Now, my colleagues over at HMS Autocar like the Born just as much as I do. In fact, spoiler alert, on balance, all of us grouped together would say that the Born is the official winner, if you like, of this test, if you factor in range, value, practicality and so on. But is that enough for its own, or do you want something a bit more exciting with it? And if so, will the 430 horsepower MG4 X Power provide it?
Proper quick car, this. Makes a wee noise as well, where something is just, it just allows itself to sound like an EV would sound. Ride is a little bit choppy. I feel like I'm sitting higher, I probably am actually, than in the Cupra, say, or the Honda E particularly. You know, you kind of feel like you're slightly up on tiptoes. So it's a very quick car, but it doesn't necessarily feel like a driver's car, per se. You know, blimey, it really does get on. It's got 430-ish horsepower, bags of torque. It's got lots of traction, no question. It moves along this road quickly, but there is a bit of chop. There is, as you turn it, you know, it leans quite a lot. I mean, it, you know, adopts an angle, but it's not It's not a rewarding driver's car, I don't think. Even if it is a very quick and capable one. It has got lots of traction. It's got lots of grip. It's as a way to make progress. I think it's quite impressive. But as a way to reward the driver and what's in here, I'm not getting a huge amount back. You turn, it turns, you accelerate, it accelerates really fast. Right, there's a little. Actually, that was not unimpressive. It sort of skipped over, lost traction a bit because the wheels were gaining, but it was just a little pop, a little hump. But when it settled rather well.
So the X Power has speed and composure, but we're still waiting really for a fast MG to offer a really rewarding drive. Perhaps the upcoming Cyberster will provide it. Meantime, a company that has in its time taken some fairly ordinary hatchbacks and turned them into some of the greatest cars in the world to drive. What about this one?
I like a Megane, but it is not, a bit like the Kia, it's not pitched as a sports car, but it is at the more dynamic end of the sort of big family hatch market, and it's brisk. It's responsive, and even though it is not pitched as a driver's car, there are quite good things to be said about the way it drives. The body is really flat. Primary ride is good. There's not too much lead, not too much roll. It's absorbent of small ripples and bumps, but it doesn't match that with loads of float. It's a very capable car. Steers really nicely. Wheels are slightly stupid shape, but it's got nicely responsive steering. If anything, as it goes into a compression, it sort of boings out the other side a little bit. But by and large, it is a nice, engaging, rewarding, smooth car to drive. It rides well enough as a family hatchback, but it also has the composure that many other cars here do not when the roads get twisty. I like it. I think it's a pretty good thing. I think it's very easy to rub along with. It's not exciting. It doesn't try and get into your system like the Fiat does, and it doesn't actually have the adjustability of the Cupra Born, say. But it's a good car to rub along with. Easy over distance, but actually quite good fun when the right road arrives. I think, as a blended, slightly enjoyable, slightly practical machine, the Megane is a good thing.
The Megane is not a small car, but the next car here absolutely is. It is a very small hatchback from one of the masters of hot hatchery.
And this then is a Honda E. This is a car which just basically fully charged. It's got 95% of juice in it, and it reckons it's going to do 88 miles. The battery is so small in this car that it's kind of almost unrecommendable, except for very specific sets of circumstances where somebody's doing a lot of urban driving. They've got another car to fall back on, or they will never go a long distance. But the ideal part of that is that it has a small battery, and that means the car does not weigh as much. It can be a bit more compact than some of its competitors, and the way it goes down the road, you kind of sense that it doesn't weigh quite as much as some of the other cars here. So it's riding well enough, I guess. There's a bit of patter, but it's not bad. It responds very nicely to the steering. It's a cool looking thing for a start. But the really cool thing about it is how pleasingly it drives. It's not particularly fast, but that's okay. But as you pitch in, it sort of turns well. There's a little bit of roll, and then it settles very nicely. Body control is really good. It's a very easy car to make good, decent progress in. Steering's really nice. Now here's a little bump, and it settles over bumps really quickly. Body control is good. It's got a really pleasant blend of sort of ride handling. You don't get a lot of feedback or anything back through the steering, but it's got a good weight. It's got a good response. This car is not a hot hatchback, but it is a good, fun car to drive. I've got flappy paddles that adjust some of the regen braking, but it's not an interactive car per se. You just push on the pedals and away you go. But I like it. It's good fun. I like the fact that it doesn't wave in the scheme of EV things very much. It's a good car, an entertaining car to drive. It's a better car to drive than it is kind of to recommend as certainly as an only car, because it is so compromised by its battery size. It is no wonder that Honda has said it is not going to make a second generation E. But there is something to be said for a future in which, if batteries get a little bit more efficient, you can have a battery of this size and a car of this size with a better range. Would be a really lovely thing.
I'm a big fan of the E, a lot more than most of my colleagues who have understandable reservations about its range. Shame that there won't be another. Will our final car combine that lightness with a bit of range and the enthusiasm to be the choice among all of these cars? Well, one thing I can tell you, it's quite loud.
Press brake pedal and start button. Right, vehicle settings. Where the hell is that? Right, I'm in the Abarth 500, which is kind of the reason we're hosting this test. It is the car we are hinging the others around. It is the arrival which is important for us. I have the external sound on, as you may be able to tell. It gave a very big idle to the amusement of my colleagues. And it seems to have settled into a background hum. I want to go to vehicle settings. It's in display. It's not in display. Where's it gone? I will turn it off in a second, because it may get a bit much. But it's not quite as simple as pushing one button to turn it on and off, as I understand. Or so I've just been briefed. Oh, it sounds a bit motorish, but it's like it comes and goes and in one gear, so it's like I'm always in fourth. Right, more importantly, the ride and handling. The internally combusted Abarth 500 Generation 695 and all of those malarkey, they're really punchy. they've got a lot of body movement, really harsh. This is less harsh than one of those, but the character that they come with as well. So you have to come to a standstill to turn that noise off, but I have turned it off. The eager, enthusiastic, puppyish kind of thing that you get off of the traditional Abarths is replicated here, and that's not always the case with internally combusted brands that then move to EV. Some of them feel the same, like a Porsche Taycan feels like a Porsche, but a Lotus EV doesn't feel like a Lotus. But this Abarth, you'd go, yeah, this feels like an Abarth to me. It's got the ride that's got a little bit of vertical movement, quite sharp vertical movement. It's not the most comfortable car, but it's not the least comfortable car. But it responds really nicely to the steering. It's front-wheel drive with a little bit of scrabble hither and thither. It's cool. I like it. Am I getting as much back as I would be getting from a traditional hot hatchback? No, but I'm not. I don't have anything to do. I don't have a gearbox to stir with paddles or a gear lever. Part of the joy of becoming involved in the driving process is that you are doing that. There is naturally something taken away when the gears are there's only one of them at any time. But there's just as much to do in the corners. Because let's face it, most of the time you get this thing set in a corner anyway, and that's where the enjoyment comes. So, and in a corner, it steers nicely. It steers positively, keenly. There's quite a lot of motor braking retardation, quite a lot of regen, and that's quite good. I quite like that. And all of the things that are appealing about the electric Fiat variant of this car, the electric 500, are there and intact. This is a small car. It does get a bit. When it hits a bump, it sort of does chop up over it a bit. But all of the things that make the electric Fiat badged version of this car appealing, there's a little bit of looseness to that body as well, are there. It's slightly ragged, it's slightly wayward. That was true of the internally combusted Abarths. But it's keen and it's enthusiastic and it wants you to have quite a good time. And I'm quite happy to let it want me to have quite a good time and mooch along with it. I suspect if this kind of routine is repeated with other hot hatchbacks as things go on, where, say, Volkswagen eventually makes a proper hot Volkswagen hatch and Ford eventually makes a proper hot electric Ford hatch, and they have the character traits of the originals, that will be pretty cool. But Abarth has got there first, effectively, and it has given its infectious enthusiasm that most of its cars have. It's put it in this as well. That's quite a lot to like about that. Quite a lot to like about that. It's a cool car. I'm happy to say this for me is currently the best affordable EV to drive that there is.